been sold the idea that financial independence is all about some number on your account statement, or even worse, that you don't qualify because of where you started out. That's just not true. It's not about some well-kept secret of the wealthy. It's about finding the right information and knowing how to apply it. On the Get Ready for the Future show, we're answering your questions so you can start making real financial change today. The journey to true financial independence begins right here, and it starts with you.
Coming to you from the 6th floor of 3 Financial Center in West Little Rock, Arkansas, we are glad to have you along for another edition of the Get Ready for the Future show, where we help people discover, protect, and share true financial independence. That's what we're about at GenWealth Financial Advisors, and it's what we're about in bringing you this program where we answer your questions. And today it's a very special topic. We're going to talk about estate planning, and we have a special guest with us, Chris Rippy from Rippy Steps and Associates. And welcome to you, sir.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're glad that you could do it. I know you've been on the show before, and we're going to answer some questions from people about estate planning today. But wouldn't you know it, we schedule the estate planning appearance, and the market goes crazy.
That's right.
So we do want to address that right off the top and kind of talk a little bit about that, because it's been a wild 7 days since we talked to you last on the Get Ready for the Future show. In fact, some numbers behind that. Thursday through Monday, the S&P 500 was down about 6.8%. But Tuesday and into Wednesday, which is the day that we're bringing you this show. If you're watching us on live stream, you know that, but we do have other platforms that we're on. So if you're listening on radio, know we record on Wednesday. So it's August 7th as we talk to you. The S&P 500 is back up about 3% from Tuesday into Wednesday. So it's recaptured some of those losses. And then the NASDAQ, Thursday through Monday, was down 9.5%, and now it's up almost 4% since then, since hitting that bottom back on Monday. So a wild ride, and a couple of lessons here. I think the first one that stands out for me as we talk about this, and we talk about it all the time on the show here, is don't try to time the market. You cannot time the market, because you think about how quickly this turnaround took place. If you jumped off of that sinking ship on Friday or even Monday, and then you probably weren't, your nerves were probably not settled by now, right? And you didn't think about it coming back up so quickly. So if you try to time it, you have to be right twice. And that is nearly impossible to do. And then the other piece here, to just from an education piece, we've got a graphic from LPL Research I want to show for our video audience. Market corrections are normal. Take a look at this. This is from LPL Research, and it shows all the way back to 1928 through so far this year in 2024, the average number of pullbacks and corrections that any given year has. And this is all years, right? So these are up years, positive years in the market, and down years, negative years in the market. Any given day, there are about 7.2 days where there are 3%, or during the course of the year, 7.2 days where we have a 3% or greater pullback. And then if you go to that all the way to the far, or actually the middle there, the third bar to the right, you see that at least one 10% correction is even normal any given year. And we've had that in the NASDAQ, depending on the index you choose. The NASDAQ is off its high 10%. So we've had that correction now, but it is, I can't stress enough here that it is normal, even in a positive year, that we have a 10% correction. So it's not time to panic. It's not time to try to time the market. Just want to get that out with the kind of week we had in the stock market, to talk a little bit about that before we dive into the estate planning topic. So you ready to go?
Ready to go. That's a great graphic to have in front of you if you're going to panic.
Yes, exactly. It is always good to keep perspective, long-term perspective, and realize that things are going to go down.
Absolutely.
On a regular basis. All right, let's dive in and get questions in here for Chris. First up, it's Jeremy from Maumelle. I want to better understand how my beneficiaries will inherit my retirement accounts and the tax implications it could have on them. Can you help me? Should I consider something like a stretch IRA or charitable remainder trust in order to maximize their benefits? Jeremy, thanks for the question. A lot in there, and a lot has changed in the way your beneficiaries are going to inherit your retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, qualified plans, qualified accounts. Used to be, prior to the Secure Act, that we had a pretty favorable way for that to occur.
Absolutely.
An inherited IRA, someone could do this stretch IRA. and take those RMDs out over the course of their lifetime. But a lot has changed when that new law went into effect now about 4 years ago.
That's right. Yeah. So prior to January 1st of 2020, if you had inherited any of those qualified accounts, then you would have to take out a minimum amount of money every year after the death of the account holder, which most of the time your beneficiary is going to be younger than you are, because we're looking at children or grandchildren or something like that. And so they were able to stretch the tax consequences of that account over their lifetime as well. And Congress caught up slowly and realized, well, we're deferring these taxes for one generation, and then the next generation is slowly eking it out, and we're just not getting our tax revenue very quickly. So they passed the Secure Act. It went into effect on January 1st of 2020, and now, with a few exceptions, there's a 10-year clock that starts for your beneficiaries. So once you pass away, as long as it's not one of the exceptions to the rule, they have to take the money out and pay the taxes within 10 years. And as you know, a lot of our clients, the bulk of their net worth is in a tax-deferred account because they worked for the same company for 30, 40 years, or they were real good about maximizing their IRA every year, and it's grown to a pretty substantial portion. So if they had not lived long in retirement, we got a big tax problem for the heirs.
Yeah, and it comes into play, especially if there aren't too many heirs, right? Because
That's right.
If you're dividing that $1 million over 8 people, it's not nearly as big of a deal if there's only one. And I think about that because I'm an only child. Now, I'm not getting $1 million, let's be honest. But I'm an only child, so I think about that a lot, when we're working with clients, that if there aren't too many heirs. So for Jeremy, when he asked, Chris, should I consider something like a stretch IRA, that's off the table, right? I mean, you really can't do that.
No, you can self-stretch it for 10 years, but that's going to be the max for most people. So the big exceptions are going to be, of course, your spouse is going to be an exception to that 10-year rule. Any of their beneficiaries, if you're leaving them to kids that are younger than 18 years old, then their 10-year clock will start when they turn 18. So they're kind of grandfathered into the old rules during minority, and then they start the 10-year clock at 18. We also see an exception for kids or grandkids that have special needs. They're going to be grandfathered in. But the big change that a lot of clients are interested in now is setting up what's called a CRAT, a charitable remainder annuity trust. It would be a different type of trust than your standard revocable trust that clients do a lot to avoid probate. It is unfunded during your lifetime, and what you do is you create the beneficiary designations that after you've passed away, those tax-deferred assets go into the trust, and then annually, for usually a period of 20 years, 5% of the initial deposit into the trust is distributed to your beneficiaries. So you get to double the amount of time that it is distributed to them. So they lower their annual tax consequences after that. And then after 20 years, whatever is left, you get to pick a church, a charity, any sort of 501c3 that will get the remainder of the money. And when we go over this with clients, most of it look at us and go, well, quick math says, if it's 5% a year for 20 years, 5 times 20 is 100%. There's no money left in this trust after the 20th year, which basic math said yes, but we can grow it. We can give it to a group called, like GenWealth. If they average maybe a 7% return over it, there's more money in there than what was started with because it's 5% of the initial deposit. Yeah.
So it might have an effect on how much your kids do receive, but it does help potentially from a tax perspective.
That's right. Yeah. You get to double the amount of time. The downsides are it's definitely for people who are naturally charitably inclined in their estate plan. The downside is that the growth on the funds is going to be benefiting your future charity, not your children.
Yeah. So what do you think now with the change in the law in terms of, so you've talked about the charitable remainder trust, but if you just had a revocable trust and those qualified assets go in there, they still have to come out. If the trust is the beneficiary, they still have to come out in 10 years, right?
Yeah, they come out unless one of your beneficiaries meets with those other few exceptions of being a young child or grandchild, your spouse, or there's actually a very unique one of if you didn't have children or grandchildren and you left it to a sibling, if they are less than 10 years younger than you or older, then they also get grandfathered into the old rules, which every once in a while does come up.
I actually have a client where that applied. His sister did not have kids and left the money to him and his other sister.
Right.
And so they actually don't have to take it out in 10 years because they were close enough in age.
Yeah.
So
but your vast majority of your clients are going to be stuck in that 10-year 10-year window, unfortunately.
So before we leave this question, I do want to talk about kind of other options, because we're addressing what Jeremy's asking about, stretch IRA, charitable remainder trust, but I know life insurance has become a big way to prepare to pay for those taxes.
Yes, especially for the clients who, once they start hitting their required minimum distribution age, if they have income and they have other assets that they can pull from for retirement income, they can use those RMDs, if they're healthy, to go ahead and get underwritten for some sort of life insurance policy. And sometimes we'll just move money from one bucket to the other, and we'll take it out of the IRA and put it into the life insurance premium, and then their kids have a large tax-free benefit after they pass away to pay any of the taxes on it.
And that's a big get for, or a big option for, larger net worth clients when they are subject to the estate tax.
Yes.
And now it's become kind of more in vogue because of the new rules with the inherited IRAs.
That's correct, yeah. And we'll probably see more of that as the estate tax exemption gets lowered after 2026, but a lot of that will depend on the presidential election later this fall.
Always does, doesn't it?
That's right.
Jeremy, thanks for your question. Hope that helped. I want to encourage you and anybody else listening to download our free guide, 7 Steps to Financial Independence. You can text the word STEPS to 501-381-5228 or visit getreadyforthefuture.com/steps to get that free guide, 7 Steps to Financial Independence. We're talking with Chris Rippy today on the Get Ready for the Future show. He's at the Rippy Steps and Associates. Conway's your main office, right?
Conway's the main office. We do have offices in Hot Springs, North Little Rock, and Pine Bluff as well.
Yeah, so you're all over the place.
We are. That's right. Try to cover the state.
Yeah, you come in here from time to time and work with
Well,
our
I do,
clients
yeah.
as well.
I feel like I can walk in and just kind of, everybody knows me now.
We're going to make you an honorary team member at some point, especially if you keep doing the show with me.
That's right. That's right.
That's going to happen. All right, so we're answering your estate planning questions today, and our next one is from Brad and Bryant. I own a business that's largely online. What would you suggest in the planning process for a smooth transition or sale of the business if I retire or pass away? So Brad's asking about contingency planning here with the retirement, passing away, and certainly this is a new thing, fairly new, right? I mean, you think about 50 years ago, you're not getting that question, but because businesses can exist and be profitable without really brick and mortar anymore, it becomes a real key concern.
Yeah, yeah, and this comes into play with and without the online component of it. We have, unfortunately, in January of this year, we lost a colleague in Conway that did a lot of a trust and estate planning stuff, and I've kind of been helping his family member wind down the firm, and there was no planning. So we're right in the middle of kind of a nightmare scenario. But to answer Brad's question specifically, the online portion is going to be key of access to people who you trust. So we're looking for passwords. We're looking for what is the two-factor authentication. People be able to get in your phone, be able to get into your work email. Banks have noticed in the last 5 or 6 years have also been really picky to make sure if you have an LLC or your company is a subchapter S corporation, that in your foundational documents, your operating agreement or your bylaws, we want to make sure that there are plans in place there of you have nominated somebody in that organizational document that says, if I become incapacitated or I pass away, Scott Inman is my guy, and he can write checks and he can do things while we're through the administration process. And that's probably just a best practices, regardless of whether you're a traditional brick and mortar or an online only occupation.
Yeah. So you think about the planning process for transition or sale. I think who he is planning to transition or sale to matters here too. If it's family, there's some considerations there for sure. But you mentioned the people who have to understand the business. We don't know for sure if Brad has a partner in the business or if he owns it solo, but that matters too. If he's solo here, the contracts with clients certainly are something that need to be addressed.
Yes, having a key man person is not always a family member in those situations. And so many times with long-standing family businesses, especially if there are certain professions like dentists or physicians in their solo practice, you might have somebody in that business that's the person that we go to, but it's not a son or daughter of the owner. And so even though the business itself might be being inherited by the family members, we really trust, our key man John over here to do that. So there's going to be a lot of discussions in between with the clients and with the the key man and the family members of who is it that we're putting in charge of this to make sure the transition happens smoothly if something happens to the business owners.
You mentioned the lack of planning in the real world case that you're working with right now. How often do you think you may not be going through it, but when you work through with somebody on the estate planning side, when they come into you initially, haven't really thought much about any of this?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
I would say almost 100% of the time when we have family businesses that a child is not involved in the business, the owner has never thought about it.
Yeah.
They think they're going to live forever. They think it's just going to go smoothly. And we sit down and I give them a list of 10 or 12 bullet points, and they kind of look at me with this deer in the headlight looks like, man, I have never thought about. Their immediate answer is, well, I just can't die.
Yes,
and we're like, well, yeah, that's one solution, but it's not a good plan.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's kind of akin to when we talk to people and we talk about retirement income lasting through a lifetime, and I always tell them, if you can tell me your date of death, we'll build the perfect retirement
100%.
plan.
That make sure your last check bounce there.
Exactly. Well, hey, Brad, I hope that helped you with asking your question with some of the thoughts we had there from Chris. We're going to call it our question of the week, though. We appreciate you sending it in, and we want to give you a Get Ready for the Future Show tumbler. Got that right here, modeling on the desk, and it's easy to claim, Brad. We just need you to send us an email, show@getreadyforthefuture.com, and tell us where to send it, because we want you to be able to claim that Get Ready for the Future Show tumbler. And if you have a question, we may use it on the air next week, and you may be the question of the week and get one of those tumblers for free. If you have a question for us, I want to invite you to take this number down, 501-381-5228. Again, it's 501-381-5228. You can call and leave a voicemail with your question. You can shoot us a text to that number as well, or you can send us an email to show@getreadyforthefuture.com. Anything you want to talk about, it's all estate planning this week, but anything financial that you want to talk about, we are here for you on the Get Ready for the Future show each and every week. All right, our next question is from Louise in Little Rock. I have one adult child who will receive about $300,000 when I pass away, but she's financially irresponsible, and I don't want her to have access to all of it at once. Should I consider an annuity purchased on my death, a trust, or something else? Pretty common case, I would think, too.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that if you don't know somebody in that situation, you should probably get out more, because there's so many people in the world that have kids, grandchildren, other beneficiaries that just struggle in life. They either struggle with money, they struggle with personal decisions. It could be substance abuse related. It could be they're in a bad marriage or just a bad family dynamic situation. So this question comes up at least on a weekly basis, if not more than one time a week. So a couple different options that we have here when you set up a good estate plan is, if you have somebody who understands the need and the struggle and the dynamics of that heir. So let's say you have a son who's really struggling in life. If we have another family member that thinks the same as our client does, what we would normally suggest to do is say, okay, well, if we have this wayward child named Jimmy and we're going to set up a trust for Jimmy, somebody else is going to be the trustee, and we're going to give you pure discretion on the money. It's just a general discretion trust. So we're going to give the trustee complete authority. You can use this money or you cannot use the money, because we trust you to be able to think exactly like we would if we were helping Jimmy out in life. That gives the most flexibility, but it also gives the trustee the authority to go, after you're gone, I'm not going to give Jimmy any money, and I'm not going to use it. So that money could be locked away forever, which might violate the whole point of the estate plan.
Yeah, which is not too unsimilar to if the child were underage, right?
That's correct.
Have that type of thing
Yeah,
going.
that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You can do what is called a discretionary type trust with standards. We abbreviate those as HEMS, HEMS, which is an acronym for Health, Education, Maintenance, and Support. So it gives a little more guidelines on the trustee of going, these are the things that we're concerned about in our beneficiary's life. We want them to go to college. We want to make sure that if their car breaks down or they need help paying rent or they have a gigantic health care bill because of an unexpected trip to the hospital, we've got this money in the trust. We're going to give you some discretion within these guidelines of being able to do that. That also gives the trustee a little more ability when a beneficiary comes to them with a very bizarre request to go, well, that doesn't really fit in my HEMS standard over here, so I don't feel like I can do that.
Yeah. So you think about that, and it brings to me, when I hear you talk about it, it even highlights the need for people who don't have a trust to consider one in this situation or otherwise because of the control. And I'm kind of bringing you back here to just estate planning 101 for listeners' education here. But the control aspect of it versus not having a trust.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the you can kind of see when we meet with clients, the weight's coming off their shoulder when they know it's done, is that a really well-written estate plan gives you the ability to kind of control things from the grave, not in a sense that you're trying to micromanage your heirs' money, but you know all of the what-ifs have already been taken care of. Yep. If you happen to lose a child, if your child got in a bad car wreck and they were disabled when you passed away, that we have all of those contingencies written in that if you had just never gotten down to write anything down, we could really mess up somebody's financial situation in the future.
Yeah, just to bring my personal situation into play here, I've got a 23-year-old, I've got 21-year-old daughters, twin daughters, I've got a 14-year-old child. So I've still got one under 18, I got 3 adults. And I don't have this situation. I trust them all, but I'm still not going to release the piggy bank all at once, right? There are stages in which that money is going to come to them. And you mentioned the college education. That was something I wanted in mind, was they get a distribution at age 25 if they have a college degree, right?
Yeah, right, absolutely.
So double components to that, not just an age. But so there are a lot of benefits here for Louise especially, and anybody else who is concerned about handing over the financial keys or handing over a full lump sum of money at once to a child, but you don't want them not to have access to it. I think you bring up some good things there for sure to consider. She mentions considering an annuity purchased on her death. A little bit about how that might work.
Yeah, so, every time I think I understand something about annuity, I see a new annuity that works differently than all the other annuities that I've been presented to.
Yes.
Not near as much flexibility as with an annuity because most of them are going to have either a set interest rate or a set payout or something like that you wouldn't necessarily have the control to turn off, or the trustee couldn't just turn it off, whether either without some sort of penalty or just violating the terms of the annuity itself. Yeah. Not a bad idea, but it always depends on what is the goal for this child or grandchild.
Yeah, every annuity has different features, and there are some locks there, some things to consider that you won't be able to back out of it at a later time. So I don't know if that's going to be the best option, but it is one that you have on the table for sure, Louise. Thanks for that question. If you've got questions for us, you can call or text them to us at 501-381-5228. Ready for the next one?
I'm ready.
All right, Trent sent in this text. I want to donate some of my assets to a charitable organization when I die. What are the most tax-efficient strategies for doing so? We talked a little bit about the charitable remainder trust already in this show, but let's talk about some of the options if Trent is wanting to donate a sizable amount of assets to a charitable organization.
Absolutely. Spoke to the Woodland Heights Senior Luncheon yesterday about this, and it was a great conversation. We went through all of these. So the most simple thing to do is just an outright distribution. So if you've got the Arkansas Children's Hospital, maybe something that you like to support, have a lot of clients that will say, we're just going to take everything we have, split it, sell it, 5% is going to go outright to the hospital, and it's a very easy thing for your executor to do. There's no restrictions on the funds, and you can just see it. You won't be so see it because you'll be gone, but your estate will see it used for whatever purpose it is. Some clients in their estate plan will be very passionate about a certain part of that, about that charity. So in October of last year, a client of mine passed away, and she was very passionate about children's cancer research. So there's about a $500,000 fund sitting at St. Jude's that's only used for cancer research. So we see that a lot with hospital donations, and we see a lot with church ministries that they might be passionate about missions or music ministry or children's ministry or something like that. So you get I got pretty creative clients that get creative in their distribution needs. Yeah. The donor advised fund think that in the last 5 years has become much more popular. So you can set these up. Does LPL have donor advised funds? So you can set that up with a broker dealer like LPL, where you have charitable components in it, and you can actually donate to this fund during your lifetime, just like any other 501c3, and deduct it from your taxes for income tax purposes. And then you can set up guidelines for your family members and for the people that are over the fund, that when I pass away, if I wanted to leave 10 or 20% of my estate to this fund, your kids can carry on your charitable legacy even after you pass away. So it's kind of like setting up a family foundation, but significantly fewer costs and restrictions on that. And we've seen that become real popular in the last probably 5 years.
Yeah, just to vet that out a little more for Trent, I know he's asking about when he dies, some ways to donate assets to a charitable organization. Do want to mention one really good one while you're still alive is the qualified charitable distribution you can take out of your qualified account. So let's say if you have an IRA, you only have to be 70 and a half for this to be eligible, or for you to be eligible for it. It used to be in conjunction with the RMD age. That RMD age has actually been increased, but they didn't raise the age for eligibility for the QCD. So think about it. The QCD, you can look it up online. It's a qualified charitable distribution. And what that basically means is you can withdraw money from your IRA, and you can send that directly to the charitable organization. And if you do that, if you don't receive the money, it's not taxed. It's a taxable IRA, right? So if it comes to your bank account, you're going to be taxed at ordinary income tax rates for every dollar you pull out of that. But if it goes directly to the charity, and we do this for lots of our clients, if it's a church or whatever it is, it goes automatically there, and they don't have to withhold taxes, and they don't have to pay taxes. No taxes are due on that. So if you don't need all of your money for retirement income as your pull, or you don't need all of your RMD for retirement income, you can certainly think of that as an option.
Absolutely.
As well. And I was going to mention the one more as well before we move on is we talked about an annuity in the last segment as well. I do actually have a client who came in who was very of the mind to donate assets to a charity. Hers was she wanted to fund scholarships at UALR. She worked at UALR, had a great passion for education, and wanted to be able to fund scholarships. She's single, but she also needed a lifetime income. In that case, and again, I'm not saying this is right for everyone, but in that case, she was able to put money into an annuity that had a lifetime income rider on it, which gave her a monthly check, still is giving her a monthly check for the rest of her life, but it has a return of premium death benefit on it at her passing, as long as there is an account value. So in this case, let's say she's getting a $2,000 a month check. There's $400,000 that goes into the annuity. At the time of her death, there is $100,000 left. The annuity company will actually refund the premium of $400,000, and it goes to the beneficiary, and in her case, that is the charitable organization.
Wow.
So that's a great opportunity for
kidding.
her in that case too. And again, want to encourage you to work with a financial advisor in making those decisions. Annuities are complex products. You hear us talk about that all the time, but they can be used in certain cases to reach client goals like Trent is talking about here. Anything else on that one?
So many outside-the-box thinking like that with charitable organizations and charitable distributions. We've seen a big increase in clients donating to charities in a way that actually makes their estate administration easier, such as all of our personal property in our house that you kids don't want to deal with, just sell it and give it to the church, or our cars that nobody wants. There's always ways, just little ways that you can make the kids' jobs easier and still bless this charity that you've been giving money to for quite some time.
Great opportunities there. Good stuff from Trent there on that question. Thank you for the text and the question through that, Trent. We've got time for at least one more here. Let's get one more in from Amber via email. I have a house fully paid off, and I also have a revocable trust. I am considering getting on Medicaid. Does having my house listed as an asset in a revocable trust protect it from probate? What are my options? And now this one's one we get in the client meeting room quite a bit too. How do I avoid paying the nursing home? Well, Amber, let me tell you first, you may be considering getting on Medicaid, but you're going to have to meet some pretty stringent eligibility requirements. You don't just decide to get on Medicaid.
Yes. The difference between Medicaid and Medicare is much more than a 3-minute question on the Get Ready for the Future show.
Absolutely.
Generally speaking, your home is an exempt resource for Medicaid. So if you already have a revocable trust, the house is correctly titled in the trust, it will avoid probate. And the value of the home does not count against you as a countable resource for Medicaid. However, that does not mean that the Department of Human Services is prevented from putting a lien on your house, and then after you pass away, if they've been paying money, state funds, to pay for your nursing home bill, they can foreclose on the house after you're gone. So there's kind of a misunderstanding about that. You know, even if somebody is very, very unhealthy, and we know there is no ability for them to leave that nursing home for the rest of their life, in theory, a nursing home stay is also always supposed to be temporary,
Right.
which is why they don't count your house against you. They don't want you to have this miraculous recovery after a year or two and go, oh, we made Scott Inman sell his house while he was here, and now he has to go live on the streets.
Yeah.
Yep.
So go ahead.
So to do that, there's a very specific type of irrevocable Medicaid compliant trust that has much more complexities than your typical probate avoider revocable trust.
Yeah.
But it is possible.
And so you just hear the word revocable versus irrevocable. That brings up some challenges because there's downsides to choosing to do that.
That's correct. Yeah. There are significant restrictions in an irrevocable trust of what the assets can be used for after you create it.
Yeah. So in that case, it probably wouldn't be the revocable trust. It would be the irrevocable trust. But then when you do that, you're not going to be able to make changes to it. So a lot to be considered there. I think really, from my perspective, to kind of bring in the financial advisor side on this, is a much better plan is to have a retirement income plan in place and know if you do need nursing home care, that your income is either robust enough to tolerate that, to be able to pay for that care. And we don't know here if Amber is married or not, but in a married situation, you want to be able to have enough retirement income that both of you would be able to pay for your care. And if not, then you're looking to something like insurance to leverage that. Long-term care insurance is a great way for people who are not wanting their assets to go to the nursing home to be able to use the insurance to leverage that and pay for that. So I think that goes back to the planning process. Holistic planning from a retirement perspective, from a financial and investment perspective, and from an estate planning perspective to find what's right for you. I think a lot of this, Chris, as we begin to wrap the show up, we've got a couple of more minutes here. People hear a lot of stuff out there. We hear it all the time. People will come in and go, well, what about this annuity? And we have to really dig a little bit to understand what their perspective is on what they have heard. There's so much noise out there. There's so much online. You can self-teach yourself, but the understanding level of a professional and the value of that is really priceless.
Absolutely. And one of the benefits about working with the GenWealth team that I've found is I learned stuff too. Yeah. In fact, one of the things that I tell most of my clients, especially clients that we share, is it's not necessarily outside of your financial ability to pay for something like that, long-term care or life insurance or annuities that have long-term care riders on it. Right. People think of long-term care insurance as just this huge monthly expense you're going to have, and you might just pass away your sleep and the money's gone, and that one is it. And there are so many more options that once the client learns about it, just like me, they go, whoa, wow, that's way more affordable than I thought it was. That's something we could actually fit in to our retirement income plan. Yeah.
So there are lots of other options. And I think the mentality, too, especially with this specific question we get from Amber, is that I don't want the nursing home to get my money. And we always tell clients you are being provided a service. It's not a service you want, right? You don't want to be there. You don't want to have to go to the nursing home. But it is a service, and they are billing you for that service. So it is something that you have to have a plan to pay for. I mean, at the bottom line is you have to have a plan to pay for it, whether it's life insurance, whether it's long-term care insurance, a long-term care rider on an annuity, some combination of that. And I really think we advise a lot about, that's your goal to get on Medicaid. You're giving up a lot of control as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, you hear the final bell there. It is time for our final thoughts. And Chris, first of all, I want to thank you again for being on with us. You talked about learning some things. I learned some things just hearing you talk through some of these questions. It's a complex process, planning for life after death and making sure your wishes are adhered to, doing things from a tax efficiency perspective. There's just a lot here. I'll hand it over for your final thoughts and talk a little bit about in that, if you would, how people could get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is rsalawgroup.com, and the main phone number is area code 501-428-9139. So pretty much anywhere in the state geographically you are, we have an office that's close to you. We love to sit down with clients. We love to ask questions that maybe they had not thought about. In fact, it's actually fairly rare that somebody comes in and they have the whole plan written for me, because I'll pepper them with questions and then we go, oh man, I didn't even think about that, or yeah, I forgot I had that asset, or something like that. And so it's a real fun service-oriented process for us that we feel like we're doing something good for the client. So we'd love to meet with people.
That is a common thing we hear from our clients, by the way, is how was it with Chris, man? He asked me a bunch of questions I had never even thought about. So
about 10 minutes in, I'm going, I'm going to send you home with homework, aren't I? And they were like, yeah, so we're doing that. Yep.
I understand that too. Well, I hope it has been beneficial for you listening or watching the Get Ready for the Future show today with the estate planning questions. We'll talk more financial, investment, retirement-related questions, but they do all intertwine. I think you could see that today as well. My final thought is if you're looking for financial independence, and again, I go back to what I said at the beginning of the show, that's what we're here to do, help people discover, protect, and share true financial independence. Download our free guide, 7 Steps to Financial Independence, by texting STEPS to 501-381-5228. That is all the time we have. We're out of time. Boy, these shows go by so fast. If you have a question for us, you can call that number I just gave out, 501-381-5228. You can leave a voicemail with the question or send us a text, and your question may be answered on the air next time.
The GenWealth financial team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or call our offices at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Independent Advisor Alliance. Independent Advisor Alliance and GenWealth Financial Advisors are separate entities from LPL Financial.